Now wait a minute. You're looking after some rabbits, right? And somebody comes along and they say that they're going to bake the grass, they're going to boil the grass, they're going to fry the grass, and then they're going to give it to the rabbit. There's not a vet in the world that would treat animals by cooking its food and then giving it cooked food. Matter of fact, there were some 18 or 19 years ago now, all the zoos in the world decided that they would give the food that the animals are supposed to eat, that the food that we've biologically evolved the ability to have. And enzymes are very important. And that when we cook the food, we cook the enzymes out of it. So it just makes sense to you. If you were put in charge of loving some rabbits, and somebody came along and they said they were going to bake the grass or cook the grass, you know, it just doesn't make sense, huh? Something that we should think about.
Hey everybody, welcome to Whole Brain Functioning. My name is Jubb, and I'm here with my husband David Jubb. And today we're going to be talking a bit about what is whole brain functioning. Whole brain functioning is a cosmology or a body of knowledge that David and I have developed over a number of years, and I think you'll find it very interesting. Communication and language is a major component. Later on in the program we're going to be getting into life food nutrition, so diet, and what we eat is very important as well. Just to begin, why don't we ask David if you can give us a little definition of what do we mean by whole brain functioning when we say this?
Well, whole brain and functioning. Whole refers to both psychological and physiological patterns. Brain refers to this aspect of ourselves involving leadership and the idea that there's neurological patterns involved in our behavior. And functioning is about this aspect of ourselves involving relationship, and that we're in relationship with each other, and that we're in relationship with the earth. So whole brain functioning. And whole brain functioning is, but in a nutshell, you really could say it's about verbal and non-verbal, so that's everything else, patterns that allow us to live in the whole of ourselves. So if I give you an example in our language, that the ancient ones left a message for us, and it's body, mind, and spirit. Body was the kinesthetic self, mind is the auditory self, and spirit was this aspect of ourselves involving enlightenment. And so there's a sequencing of our senses that's important in whole brain functioning, and the sequencing there that the ancient ones left us is to feel first, then hear and speak, but to have a preference for how we're feeling first inside, then hearing, and then seeing. And it's very amazing that we live in a world that's very top-heavy with people living in their head, valuing what they see, valuing what they hear, and maybe less than being graduating for what they're feeling and what we're doing. So how we're feeling first, and then hearing, and then seeing allows more whole brain patterning. And another example in nutrition would be that there's a neurological threshold which really is pH sensitive. So if you're interested in getting the full use of your brain, we need to be providing the brain with the proper nutrients and things.
And so just when we talk about whole brain functioning and the communications element of it, there are aspects of things that allow us to live more in the whole of ourselves, and language is a major component of this. So what kind of language there that actually allows us more of a whole brain functioning, and is there language that allows us more limited brain functioning?
Absolutely. When we look at neurology, something very exciting has happened. Of course, University of Tulane, University in New Orleans, Robert Heath, a neurosurgeon, did some amazing research which shows that when the septal region of the brain, which is kind of this area of the brain connecting the frontal cortex with the middle of the brain, when the septal region of the brain is firing, it neurologically inhibits the amygdala and tegmentum. And so the septal region of the brain is involving in pleasure, and the amygdala and tegmentum are involved in aversion. So basically, if you're framing things positively, you're eliciting more whole brain functioning in people listening, and you are coming more from whole brain functioning yourself. You really could say that every single word that we use has a physiology, and that we live what we speak, and you speak what we live next. And every single word we use has a physiology. And better than I would say that the challenges that we're having, rather than the problem is, and if you go, you go to a healer, and that this healer is practicing whole brain functioning, they're going to ask you, what is it that you want? Which that may be very different to what is it that you don't want? What is the problem? And you really could say that in psychotherapy, people have been digging the problem hole deeper and deeper, and until you just see a little bit of dirt coming out the top end. The two have dug the problem hole so deep. So whole brain functioning very much is about framing things positively, and the other example that I gave before was that we would have a preference for how we're feeling inside, because this gives us access to the whole of our brain.
Interesting. And so when people, David sees quite a few clients here in New York City, and when people come in to see you, what are some of the things that you're looking for, first of all, in their language, even before you get to nutritional elements and actually iridology and all of these other techniques that you use? What is some of the things that you're looking for in their language and how they set themselves up?
You really could say that I'm assessing this person overall. How did you walk in? How do you open and close the door? How do you sit down? How do you take your coat off? People would be surprised to know, possibly, that the way that we're driving our car, figuratively in life, often is actually the way that we're really running our life. So some of the kinds of things that I'm paying attention to is how vibrant and what are the patterns actually that are running, because at the deepest of unconscious level, there can be a pattern that is running that has affected this person.
So how about somebody who's walking down the street and they have a very loud, heavy sort of way of walking? What would that tell you about them?
You really could say actually that the person possibly has been feeling a little heavy in life, less than light. If a person, of course, is walking around, and I'm going to do this on the they're walking around like this, and there's a lot of up and down, you really could say there's a lot of up and down going on in this person's life. If somebody walks in the door and they're flaring out like this and they're walking in like this, you really could say, oh my God, here's someone who has been moved laterally more than they've moved forward in life, and there's somebody that's increasing their territory. You really could say that with the patterns and things, whether I'm trusting of another person or not, this is something. Do I feel like it's possible for me to be able to heal from this condition? This is really something. These are the kinds of things actually that are very important, because these are the things that really are about feelings. And as we said earlier in the program, healing always occurs first with the change of our feelings. So that's something that's really key.
Okay, so what are some other things then that you go into? So later in the program, we're going to be talking in depth about live food nutrition, and I wanted you to describe some of the diagnostic techniques that David uses, because some of them are very traditional. They're thousands of years old, tested, proven things, and some of them are very cutting edge as well, sort of combining those technologies. But anyway, somebody walks into you, and what are some of the things that you do actually to find out about their overall health, mental, spiritual, and physical?
Well, I mean, we talked about looking at overall form and movement patterns a little and seeing how actual succinct the movement patterns and things are. There are other things, hair, of course, eyes, physiognomy, which is to do with how facial features and things, tongue diagnosis, we look at the tongue, look at the eyes, and iridology. And I'm looking, of course, immediately, relatively at the person's hands and fingernails, looking at the strength of the calcium that you're keeping in your bones and things. And I'm using olfaction. I'm getting a smell for what is happening actually inside the person's stomach, what is happening if there's scalp and things. You really could say actually like our hair are chimneys, little chimneys, and you really could say that actually chemicals and things are coming up and they're coming out, cascading out of our hair, really. And so to smell the scalp and things gives me quite an idea of things that are going on. And then there's various trigger points and things that I can check, look to see what really is happening on the inside of the brain. You could say that when we were only 6 cells, and every cell was connected with every other cell, when you were an embryo, this part of your arm and the cells of this part of your arm grew out of the cells that actually occupy the liver. And today in Chinese medicine, of course, this area here of the arm is called a reflex. It's called a liver gate. I may, take the person's hand and just feel the webbing in here, and this webbing can give me an indication, actually. The tissue integrity can give me an indication what's happening with the person's colon, what's happening with the person's liver and gallbladder, what's happening with the spleen and pancreas. I can look at the person's eyes and get an idea of what's happening with your tummy. Do you have enough hydrochloric acid to break your food down?
Right. So what's actually kind of funny is this one client has been calling up and he has a problem with his toe, right? So it's at the very periphery of his body. And the first thing that David said is, you need to clean out your colon. You need to do some work with your stomach. And he was saying, but this is my toe. This is my toe. And it's so funny because so much of our work is to do with just reminding people that the brain is connected to everything. There's no separating us. And so he keeps coming back wanting an ointment for the toe. And actually, maybe you can describe that case a little bit because that's sort of interesting.
Well, you really could say that whenever somebody would have been in a stuck state in their life, for the most part, you really could say that there has been a sensory system deletion, and that ordinarily the person was using vision or auditory to see what I mean, the sound of the words I'm using, to see what I mean as a vision, the sound of the words I'm using to discuss and mention and to admit is auditory. For the most part, people in stuck states, they are using only kinesthetic predicates. They're going, they're getting, they're having, they're doing, and they're feeling, and they may less than really be using visual predicates, and they may less than have been using auditory predicates. And so you really could say that actually when we have access to all of our senses, it elicits more whole brain patterning, actually. There can be something that's very valuable in the use of vision, that I have the ability to see where we need to go. Auditory may be very important. I may be sort of saying things to myself. So these components actually enable us to, really be able to make good decisions. So one thing you could say, just to wrap this up a little, is, whole brain functioning is about verbal and non-verbal patterns. The rest of the show that we're really going to be talking mostly about blood and about nutrition. So stay tuned, and we're going to be right back. Did you know that out of the 135 medical schools in this country, only 30 require nutrition as a course. There's allopaths and there's osteopaths, and they're our licensed physicians. It's quite incredible. But did you know that it's only 2.5 hours of training as far as nutrition is concerned in the whole of their studies? That's something that we all should be aware of.
Ooh, that's so nice. Thanks, David.
Yeah.
David's kalimba. He plays a number of different instruments. It's an African kalimba, isn't it?
Yes, it's very amazing. I was in the Ruwenzori mountain range in Africa. I spent quite some time in Africa just travelling on the foot tracks, and I pretty much was at the provenance of the people where I went. I really never carried much with me or anything. And this night I came into the Ruwenzori mountain range close to Rwanda in Zaire, and this fellow came out of the jungle, and there was some children around him and everything, and he had one of these in his hands. It's called a kalimba, and he was playing this song that you just heard. I heard that, and I thought, oh my God, one day I'm going to get a kalimba and I'm going to learn to play this song. So
There you go. Playing it on television. In this segment, we wanted to cover more in depth a look at live food nutrition. What is live food nutrition? When we say live food nutrition, we're referring to fresh raw fruits and vegetables, and sprouted seeds and nuts and grains and legumes, and some fermented foods as well. They're all properly combined for easy digestion, because it's actually not what we eat, but what we assimilate that is key in health and well-being. So David, did you want to talk a little bit about, we're going to work our way into blood. We have some live blood that we brought with us too.
it's such an amazing thing, actually, that people may less than have yet seen living blood. And so today, you're going to see some living blood.
Right,
and it's such an amazing thing, actually, how important nutrition is. Parents at home, with children, people actually who have suffered from attention deficit disorder, may be quite surprised to know this can really be helped enormously through nutrition. And unless we're breaking down the amino acids in the upper stomach here, and you're really bringing in a protein which has very good integrity, we may less than have the proper level of neurotransmitters and things upstairs. So nutrition really is important.
So in nutrition, actually, we're making a definition here of nutrition in the sense that it's actually live food that actually has life in it. And enzymes is a key buzzword. Enzymes is the life force inside of the food. And enzymes have a survival temperature of 118 degrees. So whenever we cook food above 118 degrees, we kill the enzymes in it, and therefore the life force as well. So one of the
things actually that I do when I look at the blood is, if you've been eating cooked food, for the most part, the discrete electrical charges actually on your blood cells, they should be nice and discrete, should have a negative electrical charge, and that keeps everything sort of flowing nicely, right? But when we eat cooked, people that have eaten cooked foods, it causes blood cells to have clumped and less than to be discrete and flowing quite nicely. Most people are less than aware that of the kinds of things that we have in our blood. Most people are aware, of course, we have red blood cells, we have white blood cells, we have fibrin, globulin, and albumin, which are 3 blood plasma molecules, and we also have somatids, and I'm going to call them somatids because of Gaston Nasson's, the person that I've studied with, who is one of the foremost microscopists in the world, that we have somatids in our blood also. So in a moment, you're going to see on the screen some blood, and you'll see a hand pointing to a smaller unit, and as you watch the blood, you'll see this little unit start to vibrate around, and you'll notice that between what you're seeing is red blood cells, and in the background you're seeing what double spores. these are somatids that have collected, and basically these also we have in our blood. So
actually, here's the picture of the blood now. It's up on the screen. Why don't you tell us just a little bit about the blood?
Well, when you look at the blood, you can look at the shape of the blood and see how uniform the red blood cells are actually. You can look to see whether there's kind of like a glow coming off the red blood cell, because our red blood cells have colloidal minerals around them, which are the light-bearing minerals, which cause them to have a nice glow and cause superconduction.
What are all those dancing little particles?
Those dancing particles, for the most part, are double spores. And if we watch, what we're doing right now is we're watching the blood on a slide. We've used very special lighting techniques to get what's called dark field microscopy, kind of a lighting. And basically, what we're doing with this blood right now is we're looking to see what would happen to your blood if the plug was pulled. Oxygen was pulled. What will happen? On this slide, as time passes by, if we had the opportunity, you would little by little notice things growing in your blood. Mold, funguses, and yeast, bacteria, and things like this growing in the blood. So when we do a live blood cell analysis, it gives us an idea a little bit about what's sort of happening in the...
Where does that mold, fungus, and yeast come from?
Okay, most people think actually that mold and fungus and yeast is something which has to come from outside the body, and that is untrue. Because we could just take some paper, and if we wet this paper and put it in certain conditions of oxygen, the very colloids that this paper is made of will assemble themselves into a mold and a fungus and a yeast.
So I guess what I'm getting to is if I eat live food nutrition, everything will be digested itself, right? But if I eat food that we haven't really biologically evolved to deal with, say a Twinkie or I shouldn't name brand names, but anyway, any kind of cooked food, right? Then if the enzymes are not alive in that food, then what happens? I have to beg, borrow, and steal enzymes?
Well, first of all, that food was cooked, right? And so the enzymes, if it was past 118 degrees of heat, the enzymes are destroyed. The protein is also very denatured. Protein ordinarily should be in a spherical colloid, but it unwinds. Enzyme-resistant linkages are formed, and so actually food is less than really being properly able to be broken down into single amino acids. And basically, you really could say that this life really is the electrical force which is animating you.
So let's have a look at that electrical force.
And so when you bring in living food, live food, it has electrical force. You really could say that people have been counting empty, dead, skeletonized calories and thinking of that as food. And so I'm just going to show you first of all the hands of a person who is eating live food. And this top picture here, you can see this person has put their hands on an electrical plate, which has taken a picture of the electromagnetic corona coming off their hands. And you can see this person has an enormous amount of electricity. Down here, on the screen, you probably can hardly see. Here also is a set of hands, but you can hardly see anything going on. Look at this frame here now. I just want to show everyone this frame here. This is these two pictures. This picture is of two cabbages, uncooked. This is a cabbage that's cooked. Of course, you can see there's places in the cabbage which still is uncooked. If you're going to eat the cabbage, of course, and you eat this place which has an energy field, that can build bones, skin, nails, hair, teeth, and flesh. Whereas out here, you're not going to really be able to build much with this sort of substrate. You can burn this as a fuel, but it really cannot really be used much to build good integrity. Just to show people at home, it's quite fascinating. Look at the electrical lightning storm. These are two oranges, and you can see the most amazing electric lightning storm happening around here. By the way, this is milk, and it has a floral pattern. Raw milk, and this is pasteurized milk, dead. And it's very interesting, actually, Annie, that question that you asked me before. It is interesting, actually, that if a calf, if if you give pasteurized milk to that calf, it's going to live maybe for a couple of weeks at the most. That's the food milk is the food it's supposed to have, but when you pasteurize it, it really wipes it out, basically.
It's because of the enzymes in it, right? So pasteurization is a heating process, right? It's a boiling, or maybe they don't bring it all the way up to boiling, but it would be about 140, 160 degrees. So the enzymes are no longer there. The calf and each of us needs those enzymes.
Let's look at something here, because this is really amazing. Here's a leaf. It's black and white, so if you're looking for colour. You can see an energy field coming off this leaf. Now, this next frame that I'm going to show you, we've torn the leaf and we've just left this stem. And you're going to see the electrical field of the leaf. Now, this electrical field is what gives us life. Life begets life, and dead begets dead. Whilst you have this electricity, we're having the ability to be able to animate our bodies. And when we're simply a shell, we've lost our electricity and we're dead. For the most part, you really could say that people have been counting empty, dead, skeletonized calories, basically. It's amazing, this energy field and actually food that comes from nature. We really should be eating it how it's come from nature. The more denatured the food, the less biologically available that food is for our cells and things. When we heat processed food, it completely wipes out the enzymes that Annie said. We need enzymes for vitamins, and you need vitamins really for the absorption of minerals, and you need enzymes for the absorption of minerals. And there's a very interesting thing, and maybe you've got something you'd love to say here. When you look at life, when we look at life, let's just look at a calf and let's look at a bull whale. No matter we look at a young and old, for the most part in nature, everything in nature has, for the most part, a right ratio of minerals between young and old. They have the same level of minerals basically. But humans, it's enormous the disparity that there can be between minerals.
Right, so let's take a look at some of those differences. Now, I know that the common fallacy is that things like pasta is really, people always say, oh yeah, pasta is really good for you. But in our work, we know that pasta is one of the more evil things that you could do to your body. Will you explain why it's difficult to break that down and what actually the process is of the grain coming from being a whole food to...
I wish it was possible, really, to go into things in a depth, in a way that is possible for you at home, really to be understanding the importance of this. But let's just handle this one question that Annie has talked about as far as pasta. Pasta is made from hybrid foods. Wheat, hybrid, you cannot find an semblance of that food growing in nature. Most of the foods we can, but pasta, all the cold cereals and things that people are eating, they all come from hybrid foods for the most part. And so when you eat a hybrid food, it has a way less than excellent response in our body. It causes insulin to be released, and as a sugar, those foods sprint out of the liver much faster as sugars than what any other kind of sugar does. So it is interesting, most people have been schooled, if you have an orange, apparently that's going to, as a sugar, that's got a lot more sugar in it than what pasta has. But this is untrue. Pasta is fattening. Rice is fattening. You eat that rice cake, that causes insulin to be raised, and insulin causes you to, it causes us to store anything you ate. Not only that, but that insulin, right, it lowers blood sugar, and it causes hypoglycemia. So a lot of people actually coming to us, are suffering from hypoglycemia. And by the way, people who have emotional challenges, people who have cognitive challenges, you would maybe be surprised to know how important blood sugar is and the ability to be able to regulate your blood sugar. We all should do what we can to learn more. You should go out and find what are those foods which have a high glycotic rate, and we should be modest with those foods which have a high glycotic rate. Basically millet, quinoa and amaranth are three ancient grains which we often recommend to people because we really don't have that insulin response quite like people do when you eat wheat and rice and potatoes.
And another thing,
corn.
right, and another thing about wheat and getting back to pasta and bread and all bakery products as well is that when you think about it, if you remember when you were a kid and you were doing a plaster of Paris, you would make glues out of flour and water, and that's basically what happens in the body with pasta.
So stay tuned to this next segment because we're going to show you, we're going to bring out a Vitamixer and we're going to put a few things together. It's so simple. You could be doing these things at home. My goodness, the piece of equipment that we use is the stove of the future. So stay tuned to this next segment.
We'll be right back.
Gosh, did you know that it's a brand new experiment, what's really been going on the last 50 years? We've been eating things we've never eaten before. Pesticides, insecticides, fertilizers, food additives, colorants, preservatives, hormones, antibiotics. There's things in the food that we never have eaten before. And that is something that's very interesting.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the show, Whole Brain Functioning. I'm Jubb, this is David. We're in the kitchen now, and we're going to show you how easy and simple it is to prepare live food nutrition. You can throw away those pots and pans, you won't need them anymore, you can clear out the stove from your kitchen.
Throw the stove away.
Throw the stove away, because you don't really need it.
Throw washing up away, because most everything just rinses away.
Yeah,
you know?
It's the simplest, easiest thing to make.
And it's such an amazing thing because we buy things just totally packaged from nature. So everything here is packaged from nature.
Right, there's very little waste. There's very little prepared foods that we actually buy. There'll be a few things that we'll show you today. And but for the most part, it's the bulk of our food is vegetables, fresh vegetables.
So you could say, basically, we're going to prepare this in this blender, and it's a very sophisticated kind of a blender. But your blender at home, for the most part, is going to do these things just as fairly easy. So why don't we just say just quickly here what the base of this recipe is.
It's a vegetable soup.
You really could say, look, we've got a couple sticks of celery here. Now, I've already put some water in this container, and we have about 4 cups of water in here. So I'm just going to break this up, and I'm going to put this in.
Like David said, this is the Cadillac of blenders, and it's a Vitamixer. They're very good. It's great because you hardly have to chop anything up much at all.
We're not going to really chop much at all. Actually, you can see this. We're just.
Tell what you're putting in there. Cucumber.
That's a cucumber. We're going to put a little bit of carrot in there. Carrot, we talked about, is a hybrid. So we're going to put some in there. And we're going to balance this recipe a little bit by putting some protein, some seeds and things in here to slow the release of this sugar down. Let me cut this just a little bit. Okay, so put that in there. Go ahead, Annie. And
so for seasoning, we have some ginger and some fresh garlic.
So that's just put straight in whole, practically not even without peeling it, just about. Let's put most of this red pepper in. There's an enormous amount of vitamin C in this, incredible, and this just makes your soup very flavorful.
The red pepper really does.
We're going to put a couple of tomatoes in here, just for good measure. That also helps sweeten things up a little bit.
And it's important to put some savory herb in there too. So today we're putting in cilantro. Cilantro has a really yummy taste to it, and it wakes up the whole soup. You can just put that right in there on top.
Right, and so now a little bit of onion. Notice, look how much preparation, my goodness. Okay, so
that's
now,
some seasoning. your blender at home is going to take a little more time than that. But this guy is so great. It's fabulous.
Put that down, Annie.
Okay.
So we put carrot in there. So I want to put a little bit of protein. Look, and I've just got a handful of shelled pumpkin seed. Pumpkin seed is so amazing. Everybody needs zinc. Everybody needs some little chlorophyll, B vitamins and things, essential fatty acids. Very wonderful, right? So I've not put that much in there. Let's put just a little bit more. There's about a handful.
It's about like a quarter of a cup.
Right. This also is living. This is Bragg's liquid aminos. So I'm just going to put like what you see me there. Just put that much in.
You can use Bragg's in place of tamari or soy sauce. It's a living product. It's very delicious and it's loaded with amino acids. So it's a really nice nutritional supplement as well.
We're going to put a little bit of spirulina with lecithin flakes in here. So I'm just going to kind of put like maybe a tablespoon's worth. That's all. That's wonderful because all the amino acids that you need are right here in this spirulina. So we've got a couple of other things that we're going to put in here. We have some tahini, which is just a raw sesame seed that's been milled. So I'm just going to put a little bit in there, not much.
So this is a raw tahini. There are just 2 or 3 brands that actually make a raw tahini. They'll say so. They'll brag about it on the label. Or what we like to do actually is just grind up fresh sesame seeds and throw them in there, and that actually is really delicious.
Put sesame seed straight in there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now
miso.
We're going to put a little bit of miso in there. You could put like about this much in there. That's pretty good. With everything that we have in there, that's really good. All right.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about the importance of a living oil?
You really could say, we need living oils. We need oils that are cold pressed. This has been nitrogen flushed. It's in an opaque container so no light can go in it. Why is that so important? Because people are eating heat processed fats, and that is a poison. Heat processed fats and heat processed oils are a poison that oxidizes the body. And you really could say these are the proper kind of essential fatty acids and things that we need.
So the thing to look for when you're looking for a live oil, you'll get it in the refrigerated section of the health food store, and it'll be in an opaque bottle like this, and it's going to brag about how fresh it is, so it'll probably have a pressing date on it.
This was pressed in January 25th, 1997.
Right.
Okay, so we're just going to put a little oil in there, like that. Okay, this is going to be really quite a creamy soup. All right, and that really creams things.
Here it is.
This is something that the kids can take to school. You can warm this up a little bit to 118 degrees. You can mash a little millet or something into it. So let's turn this on just for a second and let's let the Vitamixer do its job.
It's a great machine. I really recommend anybody getting one who's going to be on a live food diet.
Done.
So that is a fabulous meal that you can make. And actually, David is in the next segment. We're going to be talking a bit more about nutritional fasting. And David has been on a nutritional fast now for well over a year, and that means that he's taking in just a few things like this blended soup. You have one every couple of days or something?
I have maybe a soup every couple of days, perhaps, or more space than that, perhaps. But this is one thing is it's possible, Foley, for this really to be a person's stomach. And I watch people, and gosh, if you're less than chewing your food less than a couple hundred times, a lot of that food is less than really being broken down properly in the stomach. So this guarantees that everything really is being broken down. And for the people listening at home, it's possible that there's someone in your family that's of age now and they less than have the proper teeth and things, and so something like this is so important. You can put food in this and you can blend it down, and actually that can be for a baby, and honestly, we all need to look after ourselves, and this is really like our stomach on the outside, and this is like our teeth on the outside doing some of this work for us.
Right, because we all need to chew our food better. They say actually in Vedic traditions that you should chew your food about 75 times. Well, I know I probably get up to 75 times for each mouthful. But this way is really a proper, it guarantees that you're going to have easy digestion and that things will flow smoothly for you.
So in this segment, this next segment that we're going to be talking about, we're going to be talking about a way for you to nutritional fast. And we're going to be talking about what nutritional fasting is. And you really could say you really need a couple pieces of equipment. You need a blender, that's pretty easy. You need a coffee grinder because you may need to grind some of the seeds and things that you put in here in a coffee grinder. This is such a high-speed blender that we never bothered to grind that up beforehand. We just threw those things in here, and this is such high speed that it actually blended those seeds for us. So you really also could say that we need to be able to give our digestive tract a rest, and this also does that. You know, you really could say that when enzymes are rested from having the ability to break food down, all those enzymes can become available for the metabolic processes of the body. And it is interesting that doctors in the past have said that they felt like, well, enzymes are destroyed in the upper stomach because it's a proteinaceous material, and apparently hydrochloric acid breaks that down. The study that they looked at, though, was they looked at the blood of animals that had taken the enzymes to see if their blood enzyme levels had raised. And they noticed they really hadn't raised their blood enzyme levels. And so they just concluded from that study, apparently, that enzymes are destroyed in the upper stomach. But when God has placed a nutrient in our food, you know, it seems crazy that it would be just destroyed. We would less than get the benefit of that. And in fact, the fact of the matter is today, we know that enzymes are drawn into the body. White blood cells are a major transport of these enzymes, and enzymes are absorbed across the intestinal mucosa into the body. And if you look in the lymph, we're going to find the enzymes. The enzymes are in lymph.
So what about food combining too? Because that question comes up quite often. When we blend food, does that change or what about food combining actually there? I noticed we mentioned that we had some fat there and some protein in with that hybrid food. That's very important. Maybe you'd like to elaborate a little bit more on that.
Well, we used a hybrid food in here. And basically, if you use a hybrid food, it's possible for you, like a food that has a starch, it's possible for you to bring a little oil in, to bring a little protein in, and that can help balance the sugar from that carrot that we put in here,
right,
to slow the release of that down. For the most part, with living food, you can blend just about anything, practically. You can, as long as it's blended thoroughly together. But for the most part, people at home, you really should keep starch away from sugars, and you should keep starch away from protein, and you should really keep starch away from fat for the most part. Starch really doesn't combine well with things, but for the most part, if you were having a hybrid food, we would recommend that you would bring in some sort of a living kind of a protein, or an oil, or some oil with that.
We're going to go to a break now, so stay tuned and come right back, because we're going to talk about nutritional fasting, and David's going to tell us a little bit about his fast that he's been on for the last year.
Did you know that people are eating hybridized food? And what hybridized food is? You know, wheat, corn, rice, potatoes, carrots, beets. These are foods, for the most part today, that you really can only find growing in a farmer's field. We cannot find anything like wheat growing wild in the world. Matter of fact, you cannot find even wild rice growing wild anywhere in the world today. If we have the very best organic wheat in the world, and we had a very fertile river bank, and we sprinkled it some there, like a bushel of it, and you and I came back in a year's time, you would not find a blade of that. Not a blade of it would have survived. Doesn't that make you think, if it's not going to survive in nature, what's happening when it's coming on the inside of us? And one thing that you could say is, what is it? Why is it that it won't survive in nature? Because mold and fungus and yeast overcome those seedlings. And mold and fungus and yeast, you could say, are the chief undertaker.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. On this segment, we're going to be looking at nutritional fasting and the benefits of this, and how to create a state of autolysis in the body, which is a way of breaking down toxins so that we can get back to who we really are, the true self. So David has been on quite an amazing nutritional fast for this last over a year now, and maybe we should start there actually and you can describe your fast to us a little bit.
Well, I really started to fast because I had a little bit of an abscessed tooth, and I fasted for some 60 odd days, and during that period of time I had Electrolyte Lemonade, I had a little, which we're going to share with you. For the most part I've been on a liquid diet, and at some point not even water though, so I have fasted for quite a bit during this period of time, and I've just decided to let all solid food go. And fasting really also is like eating very modestly, not eating very many calories. We get a longevity benefit when we tap into fewer calories. Fewer calories means 1,500 calories or less. So the amount of food actually that I've eaten this year is minuscule. Mostly what I've lived on is a water that I've made from dried berries, and some rose petals mainly. But anyway, why do you want to do that? You want to do that because we want to clear out debris and things from the body, and this gives the opportunity for the body to be able to clear the debris out. And just, you know, there's some of the viewers at home may be a little squeamish, so maybe you'll just close your eyes maybe just for the moment. And those people who are a little bit, you know, fine in the tummy, go ahead and just take a look at this. I'm going to hold up some plates here from a book. You can see this is the kind of debris that people typically have within their intestinal tract, not only just in the intestinal tract, but in various places in the body, ducts and things like the bile duct and bladder, bile bladder. There could be adhesions and things there. There could be stones in your bladder. There could be adhesions like this in your transverse colon and things. And this is debris mostly that people have sloughed off from the inside of their intestinal tract. If you go into your waist and you pull out what fat there is, you know, you can tell how much fat. Any expansion of the girth past the fat, for the most part, is taken up by debris inside the body that's like this. And I just want to show one more picture here, because this person had a condition for some years, cleared up completely by doing some tissue cleansing in 7 days. This person had ulcerated feet for more than a couple of years. In 7 days of tissue cleansing, completely, this person's feet have healed up. Let me just show you one more plate of that person's feet. You can see the ulceration, incredibly, that's happened. This person lay in a hospital bed for a couple of years with a condition like this. In 7 days, completely cleared up by clearing out some of the debris from the body. So why don't you say, Annie, what nutritional fasting is? The 5 things it is.
Right, so with nutritional fasting, we withhold all solid food.
So no solid food.
We withhold all cooked food.
No cooked food.
And this is to rest the body, basically, and to go into a state of autolysis.
So no solid food, no cooked food.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
I'm not sure what the 5 are.
Okay. No starch. because we talked about starch, and in this program we've talked about it being a hybridized food. So there's no cooked food, there's no solid food, there's no starch. On this nutritional fast, there's no breakfast, breakfast, so you don't break before noon. Food, no cooked food, no starch, no breakfast, and there's one more thing. No what?
I don't know.
Is that 5 things? No solid food, no cooked food, no starch, no flesh food, and no breakfast. So basically, what this whole program really is designed actually to give your whole digestive tract a rest thoroughly. And actually, you really could imagine that the workers down here, they need a vacation. They need to have a vacation, so we need to give them a rest. So now, typically we recommend a gallbladder flush during this period of time. And what are some of the kinds of things that a person could have on a nutritional fast? And what are some of the things in the very beginning of the fast that are very important for someone to have?
The way that we've designed the 14-day nutritional fast, most people who come to see us or to see David, they get an overall critique. David will, like we described in the beginning of the show, he'll tell you kind of exactly what's going on with you physically and emotionally, mentally, and so forth. And then we often encourage people to go on a 14-day nutritional fast. So the first 4 days are 3 or 4 days, you're mostly having a lemon beverage, which is sort of a lemonade. It's sweetened with a little bit of honey, and it has some really highly
of course, we talk about raw honey.
In it, right? A raw honey.
Let's tell you what it has in it. It has 3 lemons, which are lightly peeled. You put them in the blender. You put water in there. You put a pinch of Celtic salt in there. You put 3 to 5 tablespoons of a very good living oil, like an olive oil, cold pressed, or a flax oil. You put that in there. And you put something to sweeten. There's a herb called stevia, which is very sweet. You could bring that in if somebody is having candidiase challenges. You could use a raw, unpasteurized honey to sweeten that with. Mostly the other 2 things, more or less, that we would use to sweeten that. That's blended up really good, and that's an electrolyte lemonade. That is amazing because it draws the lemon into the lymph. The oil binds with the pulp of the lemon in this beverage, this electrolyte lemonade, and it draws this lemon actually into the lymph. So it washes and clears and cleans the lymph, and the citric acid engages itself in the Krebs cycle, so people have more energy. There's more essential fatty acids actually in the body, so there's more transportation of oxygen to the brain and things like this. So basically, because most people are carbitarians, they eat a lot of carbohydrates, and we said no starch out of the 5 things that nutritional fasting isn't. Everything else it is. So you could bring in some sesame seed fresh ground, some pumpkin seed fresh ground, some flax seed fresh ground. You could blend those into a juice. You could blend those into a soup to slow the release of that juice down to make it feel more like you're having something. Right. You could blend like a seed vegetable, like a little dulse, to get minerals and things. You could blend that in. Okay.
So all of this actually, these first 3 or 4 days is actually to set the person up to get ready for a gallbladder flush, which is a very simple procedure and has saved many people from ridiculous surgeries that would have taken out somebody's organ, which is nothing to solve the problem in the first place. It's just dealing with symptoms. So in a way that you can clean out your gallbladder is by this 4th day of the nutritional fast. About 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we encourage people to drink about 8 to 10 or even 12 ounces of a really high-grade cold-pressed flaxseed oil.
Now, you could use olive oil because that less than goes rancid If you know that your digestive tract is working nicely and you've opened your digestive tract up, it's possible to bring in a flax oil or something because that's going to pass through you really nicely. That's a wonderful oil to use. If it's a bit, you're wondering maybe it could be a bit sluggish, the oil could remain within you for a while. If that's the case, then go ahead and use olive oil because that's an oil which doesn't oxidize as quick. Of course, the flax oil, you're going to get a lot of benefits from that if you have the ability to do that. So we open up the digestive tract first. We make sure that your digestive tract stays open. You have to make sure the bowel stays open. You may need to do some colonics. But what is a gallbladder flush? A gallbladder flush basically is, as Annie said, bringing in some oil, like about 10 fluid ounces of oil, 4 fluid ounces of lemon juice. You sip the oil, you sip the lemon juice. Annie said start about 1:30. There's a reason for all of this, if it's anyone is interested, possible to be able to pick up a book from us which actually describes this. And basically, so you sip the oil, you sip the lemon. At 3 p.m., you lay over on your right side with your hips elevated with 3 pillows underneath. So the oil is over here close to the duct of your bile duct. And at 3 p.m., you get up and you go and you do a coffee enema. And the coffee enema, coffee going in this way, relaxes the duct, so it pops those stones out. You can pop those stones out. It's possible to look the next few times you defecate over the next few days of the nutritional fast and find stones actually in the stool.
Right.
If there are less than stones that you found stones, adhesions often are also dissolved. And so we're going after clearing out the adhesions and things like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish that we had more time to talk about all of this.
Right. We'll take more of an in-depth look next time. If you're interested, though, in our live food recipe book, it describes the gallbladder flush and a 14-day nutritional fast, as well as a lot of recipes for live soups like we prepared today and so forth. And you can contact us at the number on the screen.
So anyway, one message to everyone at home. Be kind and be gentle. If you make a change, changes have to fit at home, and it has to be simple, it has to work, So be kind, be gentle, and I hope that you can tune in again. Anyway, lots of love from Annie and I, and really good health. And anyway, this is David and Annie signing out, and hope you have a really great weekend, a great day. Okay.